The first thing to consider is that we do not have Office installed on this workstation. So in order for us to build a package to write to Excel, without Excel, we actually need to install an add-on from Microsoft called Objects. It's actually called the Microsoft Access Engine Redistributable. And you can just do a basic search for this to find the download page. I already downloaded this. Right now, this version is 2016. I suggest you download the 32-bit version and not the 64-bit version. Let's look at that real quick. You're going to have these two choices. One of them doesn't have x64 and the other one does. Even if you have a 64-bit workstation, you're going to want to download the 32-bit for these objects. That's this one. The reason for that comes down to the Integration Services service. There's actually two executables, a 32-bit and a 64-bit. So we need the 32-bit, and I'll show you why when we actually create the package. So I already downloaded this. We're going to install this. This is installing the Office objects, so it's not Office as in an application. There's no GUI, but the objects for Office are installed, so that way Integration Services can create the spreadsheet for us. So once that's installed, you open up Visual Studio. If you have Integration Services already installed in your Visual Studio, then you can just create an Integration Services project. If you do not have that, or maybe you just installed Community, you can go down here to Continue Without Code, and then at the top there's an Extensions and Manage Extensions. And the easiest way to find this is basically just search for integration. And I already have it installed, so it has a checkbox next to it. You're going to need to do this and have this installed in order to create a project for Integration Services. I'm going to call this one SQL to Excel. Once the project is created, I usually change the package name right off the bat. Over here on the right, you're going to have your solution level and your project level. If you right click on the project and go to properties, then go to configuration properties and debugging. You're going to find that there's this setting called run 64-bit runtime. This is trying to run the package as a 64-bit. Now, and I already tried this, so you can try it if you want. If you install the 64-bit, theoretically this should work. But I tried it different ways, and no matter what, the package just would not run. I found that we need to disable this, so we run as a 32-bit, which is what we installed in the first step. So now the project will run as a 32-bit instead of the 64-bit. The first thing we need to do is create a connection to our database. So we need a data flow task. Double click on that. And then we're going to add an OLEDB source. That's a destination. Under Other Sources, drag the OLEDB source. And then double click on that as well. So we're going to create a connection to my local SQL server, which is WSQL01, and I have this basic query out of the Worldwide Importers database. So we're going to do that back in Visual Studio, create a new connection manager. Choose your database below. We are not going to query a table directly. We're going to use a SQL command. So let's make this 10,000 records. How about that? You paste the query in here and preview it. You can also use the other options like the build query. I personally don't use this. I usually use Management Studio. It gives you a nice little GUI. You can add tables to it, connect them together, joins, filters, etc. And then your this query here that's built will be copied into that SQL command box. Okay, we'll go to columns. In the columns section, I'm not going to remove anything. You can remove fields here that do not need to be in the spreadsheet. So we're going to keep all of these fields. Click OK. Now we need to create our Excel destination. Under the other destinations, you're going to see Excel destination. Drag that. And we need to connect our SQL source to destination. Then double click on the Excel destination object, and we need to create a new connection manager for the Excel spreadsheet. Click New, and then Browse. And in my case, I'm going to put it on the D drive under my export folder. I'll just call this Excel, or maybe just Results. Now, as you see, there's no file here yet. I want Integration Services to create this file. So when I click Open, it does have the path and the file name in the Excel file path. You'll notice if you read the description at the top, it says specify the file to connect by selecting existing file or by providing a file path to create a new file. That's what we're doing. Let's switch it to 2010. Columns are not in the first row. Click OK. Now leave the option for data access mode to table or view, and then click the New button to create our spreadsheet. You'll get this message, that's OK. Click OK. This is a create statement. It looks just like something you'd put into your database and create a table in the database. This is just creating the sheet in the Excel spreadsheet. The statement is create table, but it's not changing anything in the database. This is creating the actual file. This is one of the errors I wanted to show. There's a syntax error in one of the fields. What happens here is the data type, or the data that's coming in, the engine is unable to translate what to create in the Excel spreadsheet. You click OK. In this case, it turned out after some testing that it was the date time fields. It has trouble converting the date time fields. If I take those out and take out that little comma at the end there, and I go back and click OK, these are all, by the way, these are all integer varchars. There's a bit and there's text. Click OK, and it creates the sheet. So we click OK after this message box, and in the drop down you're going to have an entry for the Excel spreadsheet destination. Click on that as our destination, and then go to the mappings, and you'll see all the fields that we had in the query minus the date time fields, of course, and you can now choose what column these fields go to when they actually get into the spreadsheet. You can also choose to ignore some of these. If you want to, you can just leave the ignore and it won't end up in the spreadsheet. Okay, after you lined everything up, click OK. And before we run it, we're going to check. Right now we've got our results.xls file. It was just created. It's 9 kilobytes, so it has no data yet. And then we're going to run it by clicking on Start. As always, you can see the progress under the Progress tab. This will gives you a little more information, especially things like these warnings. But the package was successful, so we click Stop and then check our spreadsheet, which is now 50 kilobytes. And I can't open it with that. We have to open. I'm using an open source spreadsheet just to display this, but as I said, there's no Microsoft Office on this machine. And Microsoft no longer allows you to download a viewer. I think there's some third-party ones. But so that's why I'm using this. And there's our data. You notice the true false instead of the bit field. Now, one last item I wanted to mention, just so there isn't any confusion. If you delete the file, you have to go through and create it again. So if I delete the file and I come back here and say, well, let's run it again, I'm going to get an error because the destination is not there anymore. So the reason for that is the file is created when we go in here and we do the new, gives you this message, and then we remember we took out the time or the date time. This is when the file gets created. And then we choose the sheet. So if you move or rename or delete that file, when you run the package again, its assumption is the file is already there. So you will get that error. Now in this case, I recreated it again and the file's here. Also, if you were to stop and rerun this again without doing anything, just keep running it, it does not replace the file. It adds to it. You can see this is 92 kilobytes now. And if we run it a third time, it's going to end up being 140 or so. 134. Let's open this up with Office. So what it's been doing is just adding to the end of the file. So you're not replacing the file each time you run it, you're just adding the same records to the same file. In another video we'll go over file iteration, where we'll actually name a file and move it, create the file, name the file, move it. It's very useful to put things like date and time at the end of a file name, but you have to create that when the package runs. So please leave your comments below. I hope this helps you out. And also please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.